All right, everyone. Welcome back in here to Inbound Sports Podcast. I am Brooks Talley, here with my cousin, best friend, Devin Dowdy. We got a spooky episode for you today, our Halloween episode. Dev, how you doing today?
I'm good, brother. How are you?
Pretty good, man. Been a crazy week, but we appreciate all the support everyone's been saying. Great things to us, reaching out to us, letting us know they like it. Like I said in previous podcasts, it means the world to us. We've got a great friend of the show, Tyler Burk on. Tyler, great man, great person, great friend, heck of an athlete. We covered it in the interview, but he's plays for Dickinson State, collegiate athlete, both football and track. So it's going to be a really interesting interview. We're really excited for that one.
Yeah, I know Tyler being one of the best to ever come out of Miles City athletic-wise.
Mm-hmm.
Great man, very humble, very informed. Loved, the time I was able to get with him through high school and middle school. So very excited to have him on. And, just think it's going to be a great podcast.
Absolutely. So let's jump right into it here. We're going to start, like we do with every show, with the NFL. So we just had Week 7. Dev, what are your takeaways from Week 7?
I'll keep this kind of brief. Obviously I don't want to get too into this. I want people to focus on the interview. But a couple things was, Bears need to fix some things, and they need to fix them fast. I think that O-line's really struggling on the offensive side. I think defensively they're okay, but, they need to fix some things there. Cardinals showed they got a bright future. They got the right man in Cliff Kingsbury and Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins. So really like what they have to offer out of Arizona right now. And look, after all the speculation and, you and I kind of getting on Baker, the man stepped up, delivered, did what he had to do for the team, and obviously with the big blow to OBJ. But I think, Baker stepped up, showed that he was ready for the challenge, and was proud of him for that. So I thought there was a lot of good takeaways this week.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I feel like people are going to probably be tired of hearing me talk about the Browns, so I'm not going to try to cover them as much this week. But obviously Baker played good. OBJ's a hurtful one, but it'll be really interesting because I have a feeling that they might play a little bit better, not trying to feel so forced getting the ball into his hands. So I'm really excited to see this matchup against the Raiders for him. But my takeaway is Tampa Bay is really starting to find their groove, and everyone should look out for him. Last year at this time, Brady had 11 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. This year at this time, he's got 4 touchdowns and 4 INTs. Bruce Arians has let him sling the ball around the field. He's starting to feel comfortable in there. Statistically, he's playing at a more efficient rate, and then also Gronk is starting to find his swing back into things. He's starting to be that red zone target we know and love him to be. He in interviews he talked about he felt a little uncomfortable at the beginning of this year. He was starting to wonder if he's a little washed up, but after I think it was last week, he and Bruce Arians sat down and they had a really good game plan planned out for him, and he felt like that could have been the week where he got his confidence back and started to break out, and then obviously that carried into Week 7. And yeah, so I think Tampa Bay is one of those teams we really need to start kind of paying attention to and give them the respect they deserve. And then my second thing is Saints are not the dominant team we thought they would be this year. Breeze is playing at a significantly worse having a worse season than he did last year with an average completion rate of 72.6%, whereas last year he was 75. So obviously we're seeing a steady decline. He's throwing way more interceptions this year than he did last year. Obviously a lot of injuries. Michael Thomas being out often with I think he's got a nagging toe or calf injury or something like that. So I think the Saints, we're starting to see them being vulnerable where coming into this season we didn't really think they would be. We thought they might be one of those teams that could run away with the NFC.
Absolutely. Great points there, brother. Can't really argue with you on any of those. Tampa Bay's scary, and everyone needs to watch out. They're putting up points. The defense is just holding people down. So love what you said there. So we'll roll right into the next segment here. Going back to Atlanta, why the hell can't they close out a game? What's going on there, Brooks?
I kind of kept this one brief because I really do believe it's as simple as mentally. I think mentally the team's just kind of, I don't want to say throwing the towel, but that's almost what it is. They just kind of given up on the season. Obviously, they just lost their head coach. And with how many injuries they've had in their secondary and a few here and there offensively, it's tough for them. I think they're kind of getting beat up and they're just tired of blowing these leads. And I think their head and heart is out of it. So in my opinion, I really do think that's kind of the Falcons' problem right now.
Yeah, obviously, they blew 2 15 fourth quarter point leads earlier this season and blew another one to the Lions. Obviously, things happen. Everyone can put the blame on Gurley, but he trucked a guy. Momentum fell over right into the end zone. Not his fault. I'll keep it simple too. The defense has got to step up. I mean, there's a mental block there. They have a negative rating in every game this season, and it obviously starts at 0 if you're up or above. But I'll just read some stats. They're 28th in points allowed. They are last in total yards. They are last in passing touchdowns allowed, and they are last in red zone touchdowns allowed. So this team is giving up points at a rapid pace, and that offense is doing the best they can, but they're just not stepping up. And to your point, they're mentally blocked right now. They are struggling to find, why they can't do this. And I think they all need to rally together and say, you know what, we need to do our job and get past this mental block we're at.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just tough for a team. I mean, I honestly can't say I blame them. I'm not too prideful to say I wouldn't be in the same situation, to be honest. I really think I would be having a hard time keeping my head and heart into a season when you've just suffered so many tough losses and tough injuries to your teammates. It's just hard. But we'll kind of keep this trend of trouble and woes going on for NFL teams. But team in the NFL most trouble moving forward, Dev, who do you think?
Well, it's tough. I think the New York Jets are in a really bad spot right now. I think they're 0-7. Obviously, people are like, well, Trevor Lawrence is going to come in. If I'm Trevor Lawrence, I'm staying at Clemson. I'm not going into a cesspool like that.
Yeah, for real.
The rumor this week, they're trying to trade Quinnen Williams now. Their number 3 pick out of Alabama, and that's obviously a huge blow. So, Sam Darnold, he's just watching his best players around him. The only players he really had, they're just out the door. Obviously losing Jamal Adams earlier to the Seahawks was a big blow, but there's no weapons. They're trading away everyone. It's almost like they're starting over, but this is just a toxic culture, and nobody wants to go into toxic cultures. And so, I think Adam Gase being the head of that ship, which is the wrong thing for them right now. I have the New York Jets. They're in a lot of trouble. And shout out to Cam Murray. Love you, brother, but you're in a tough spot right now.
Yeah, he and I have talked, and he's well aware that they suck, but you got to respect the fact he's still sticking with them. So, yeah. But for me, I'm going to talk about, I brought him up a little bit earlier, the Saints. The Saints haven't been putting away teams like they should and how we thought they would be. When they play good teams, they struggle to compete against them. Obviously, Drew Brees is having a significantly worse year than he has before. So that's tough for them. Obviously, Drew Brees being one of the most accurate passers in the league, having such a decline in his completion rate and obviously interceptions. So I think that's a huge struggle for him. But, I'm really looking forward to their Week 9 matchup against the Bucs. I think that will really show me for certain if they are who I think they are. I think they're kind of one of those pushover teams they could be, or if they're really a competitive team, because Tampa Bay is going to come in hot and ready to roll. So I'm really looking forward to that matchup.
Yeah, no, can't say enough about that. They were one of the top Super Bowl picks for a lot of people coming in, and they've really disappointed a lot of people. So we'll go into the next subject, trying to keep it brief here. Obviously, with Tyler coming on here soon. Talk about kind of referring back to the draft. Who's your biggest steal of the draft and why?
Yeah, absolutely. So this one's probably not going to come as too much of a surprise to fantasy owners out there, but James Robinson III, the running back out of Jacksonville, he's an undrafted free agent out of Illinois State. He's averaging 4.5 yards per carry and has 481 yards this year, along with 4 touchdowns. I mean, everyone loves hearing those stories about the undrafted free agents coming in and playing fantastic and earning a starting spot, obviously, like Phillip Lindsay in Denver. That's kind of the situation that's going on here. James Robinson has been a bowling ball. He's got a lot of Maurice Jones-Drew in him. He's small. He is stout. I mean, he will run guys over. He'll run past them. So I think he will have a really good career, but it's really cool to see an undrafted guy coming out to such a hot start this year.
Yeah, great pick there. That's an awesome story. Can't say enough about him. Congrats to him, obviously, with all the hard work he's put in. But I'm going to shift gears. I'm going to go down to Arizona. He's not much of a steal, but more just I love the productivity he's shown me, especially on Sunday night. I'm going to go with the linebacker out of Clemson, Isaiah Simmons. Look, he was the 8th pick from the Cardinals in the draft. He has 12 total tackles, 1 interception. Obviously, like I said, not the biggest stats necessarily, but he's very quick and disruptive. He can read the offense really well. I think on Sunday night, he sealed the game for the Cardinals, really brought it home with that huge interception on Russell Wilson. But obviously, not necessarily a steal because he was drafted so high, but I definitely think, he wasn't a guy that I think coming into the draft a lot of people had on their radars. It was about Burrow and what he was going to do, and obviously Herbert, guys like that. So I definitely think that Simmons was a steal for the Cardinals and a perfect fit for them down in Arizona.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great one. I mean, watching him play, I just love the way he plays. He's fast, he's athletic, he loves to be in the middle of group tackles, so that was awesome to see. So I agree with that 100%. We're going to move on here. What was it, Monday night, that Cardinals-Seahawks game. I felt like I got 18 texts from Dev just saying, man, this Cardinals team is fun to watch. Man, this Cardinals team is fun to watch. But you know what? The Dolphins are kind of showing up. They're proven to be kind of a fun team to watch, too, and they got a lot of positive things going for them. Obviously, with Tua coming in for Fitzpatrick, it'll be interesting to see what happens there. That could change things. But for you, Dev, who's the most exciting young team in the NFL, Dolphins or Cardinals?
Yeah, I love both these teams.
Mm-hmm.
I love what Kingsbury's doing in Arizona. I love what Brian Flores is doing down in Miami. But let's ride the Cardinals train, baby.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely,
they're 5-2. Just a couple stats for they're first in the total offense in the NFL for rushing yards and rushing touchdowns. They're third in red zone touchdowns. They're ninth in passing yards and touchdowns. So in every statistical category for the offensive side, look, they're protecting Kyler Murray well. He's obviously doing what he does. Kyler Murray, 67% completion percentage, 13 touchdowns to 7 interceptions through the air, 437 rushing yards, and 7 rushing touchdowns. So, Hopkins, 57 receptions, 704 yards, 3 touchdowns, and then obviously just talked about Isaiah Simmons and Budda Baker. Those are the defensive leaders right now, and they're getting it done. Love what I'm seeing out of them. They're a lot of fun to watch. All the props to Miami. I'm not taking away from that team, but I really love to see this turnaround in Arizona, and I'm really looking forward to the future in there.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, those numbers are honestly mind-blowing that they're not being talked about more. But, I mean, they really should be. Seattle's, in my opinion, was the best team in the NFL, but, I mean, Arizona showed them. They deserve to be right in that conversation, too. Kyler Murray, I mean, granted, he's only like 4'2", he's a short little guy, but man can sling the ball. Man doesn't get tackled too easy. And obviously, like you said, DeAndre Hopkins, Larry Fitzgerald, Mr. All-Time Football, in my opinion. I mean, he exemplifies football. And then, yeah, Kenyon Drake's a great running back they got. I think he fits in pretty well. And then obviously on the defensive side, you said Isaiah Simmons, Budda Baker. Budda Baker's a stud back there. Fast, just crazy athletic. But Arizona needs to be on your radars if they aren't already.
Yeah, absolutely. I love what I see out of the Cardinals. So that'll kind of wrap up our NFL segment. We're going to move into some more college football here. So, Brooks, I'm going to bring up the top 25. Just a team that you think is rated too high and a team that you think is not rated high enough, and why?
Yeah, people are going to hate this, and I'm going to sound super lame, but I honestly really like the rankings right now. I think they're pretty fair, to be honest. Clemson, obviously at 1, Bama at 2. Ohio State might be really the only team I might contest with just because they haven't played very many games. But, I mean, with how they spanked Nebraska, it's hard to tell them they don't belong to be there. I mean, I Notre Dame, I believe, is at 4. Notre Dame, I mean, obviously their record proves that they deserve to be there. I really hope that's true, being a Notre Dame fan. But then the other teams I like, no one's really thinking about. Cincinnati at 7, Texas A&M at 8. I think those are very fair rankings for those guys. And then Wisconsin having their QB out with COVID, and obviously probably going to miss this week because of the whole COVID thing going on. You hate to see it. But 9's a fair spot. You would like to see more out of those guys, the talented roster that they have, and that young QB. His name slips my mind right now, but he's a stud. But yeah, for me, I really can't contest with too much on it right now.
Yeah, no, I all the props to that committee. I think they've done a phenomenal job the whole year. But for me, a team that thinks too high, again, I loved what I saw at Ohio State, but we just haven't seen enough yet. It's one game. At 3, I think they're deserving of a top 4 spot, absolutely. But I think, one game in, yes, Justin Fields and that offense got going, but I think they need to just earn that spot a little more. I think they just kind of got thrown in there. So I think, again, to any Buckeyes fans that listen, I'm not ragging on your team. I think they're a phenomenal squad. I think they're awesome. But, a team that I think is a little low that I think could actually be explosive is I like SMU at 22. I think they deserve to be in the top 20. Look, they're 5-1. They're really explosive, a lot of big plays, getting it done in the crunch time. So I think that's a team out of Texas that I think we could really see make that jump into the top 20, top 15. Hell, who knows, they can make the top 10. So, again, I like the rankings, but I think SMU's a kind of a sneaky team.
Yeah, there's some hot takes there, Devo. I like those. Yeah, SMU's kind of that one you always forget about because, I mean, they really haven't been in the conversation very often or very long. But, yeah, I mean, they play a good brand of football. I like what I see out of those guys. So we'll kind of go into more of a player perspective. Obviously, Justin Fields put on a show against Nebraska, as did all of Ohio State. But we always like talking about the draft. Dev and I is kind of an interest of ours. So where do you think Justin Fields will go in the draft?
It's tough. I mean, obviously, we not even halfway through this NFL season, so the rankings and the draft order is going to change. But I really like Fields going to like a Jacksonville or Minnesota. I think Minnesota, like we talked about with Gabe last week, they got to get rid of Kirk. I mean, it's just time to let go of this, get rid of the contract. I understand you put a lot of money into him, but Justin Fields, having weapons like Dalvin Cook and Justin Jefferson and obviously Kyle Rudolph, Adam Thielen, that intrigues the hell out of me because he's got great vision. He can run with his legs. And then Jacksonville, a lot of young players. Again, Minshew Mania, baby. I've rode that train. I've enjoyed it. But if they could pick him up, I think he could really boost that offense. I think they got a lot of weapons that could surround him well. And, I think he's a great prospect. All the props to him and for coming out and proving that. But I like Minnesota and Jacksonville as my two spots right now.
Yeah, man, absolutely. I can see that. And, obviously Lawrence is number one. And I do believe Fields is definitely the number 2 quarterback. Lance is in competition for it. Lance is obviously being a guy that goes to school at Montana State University. We get to see NDSU, it feels like, every year. And last year, as a true freshman, he literally just put boots to ass on us, kicked our ass. And, MSU was a great team that year, so he's really good. But Justin Fields is definitely number 2, and he's earned it. But I really don't see him falling outside the top 10. I think he's such a talent that it would be crazy to see him fall outside the top 10. So if I had to go for a guess here, I really see Washington kind of looking in the QB market for a draft. I think they're kind of done with Haskins. Obviously, we talked a little bit about it last week with Jamarcus Russell-esque vibes, I guess. That's probably the worst vernacular to use, but it is. He's kind of slumping here. So I could definitely see Washington football team being in the quarterback market again. And like he's mentioned, NFL season's not even close to halfway done. A lot of still things can change numbers wise, but I could see him falling to like a number 3 at Washington. Or, even if they don't pull the trigger, I could see like a Minnesota at 5, like you mentioned. I could definitely see Minnesota being ready to move on from Kirk and, give the reins over to Fields. So I could definitely see that. And even if he falls outside, I could definitely see the Bears taking him. Bears, obviously, we don't know where they're going to fall, but I could definitely see the Bears moving up to go get him. It might be nice for them to move up for a quarterback that people will be happy about. So, there's a lot of variables still at play, but I definitely agree with you, and I think Minnesota and Washington, and like I said, even the Bears could definitely be in play for him.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll keep rolling here. Last topic for the NCAA football. Right now, Brooks, we have a lot of teams out there. I think top 25 teams, there's a lot of great teams, but who's a team right now that you think is being slept on and they need to be getting some respect out there?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm probably going to get some weird looks and people thinking I'm an idiot, which they're probably not wrong, but I really have to say Georgia. Obviously they had that tough loss against Alabama, but this team has historically gotten better and better as the season goes on. Every year it seems like Georgia's one of those teams that's always like, man, they're looking really good right now come college football playoff time. And I really like Kirby Smart as a coach. I think he's going to have his guys learn a lot from that tough loss against Alabama. And if the opportunity ever arises to play Alabama again, I think he will definitely have them ready. But I could definitely see Georgia being one of those teams that works their way back up into that top 5, maybe top 10 spot.
Yeah, I know Georgia at 5 right now is obviously a team that you need to watch out for. They've shown that, they're always in that SEC championship game and right there. So they're on the cusp and can't argue they're there. But I'm going to shift gears to a team that we haven't seen a lot of, but I really liked what I saw when I watched them, and that's Michigan.
Yeah.
They just came off a huge win against Minnesota, 49-24, absolutely manhandled them. And I think for Jim Harbaugh, I think this is one of the best squads he's ever assembled in Michigan. And I think this is an exciting year for that up in Ann Arbor. So, you got Dylan McCaffrey at quarterback, Nico Collins at wide receiver, and then Chris Evans at running back. And they showed it that they are a trio that they need to watch out for. They can get the run game going. McCaffrey likes to go to Collins a lot, and I think this is an offense that can put up a lot of points. They have a defense that's poised and ready to go, and I think this is a team that could really sneak into that top 10 late and maybe even make a run at the college football playoffs.
Yeah, to be honest, I definitely agree. Obviously, zero love for Michigan. I know my friend Mason Denardi, he's a big Michigan fan, but sorry, I hate them. No, I just do. But yeah, that's an interesting take. I really like that. So we'll move on to our last little group segment here. Golf. We're big golf guys here. We love golf. Dev's, in my opinion, a golf genius. But Dev, does Tiger have a realistic chance of going into Augusta?
Tiger's kind of disappointed me in his last couple starts. At the Zozo this past weekend, he was struggling to kind of up and down. Second round, obviously 6 under with 2 bogeys. Got hot, but it's just not a lack of play. He has to save his body. But yeah, look, he's the greatest player of all time. It's a major, it's Augusta National. He's played there for 22 years. This will be his 23rd appearance there. Of course, he has a chance. There's always a chance. So, but he has got to start well. He has got to come out of the gates, shoot a couple under, put himself in a leaderboard in that mix. And then, he just has to be firing on all cylinders. You look at him last year, he was driving the ball in play, and not only that, but he was hitting it long. His irons were good. His short game was good. And, you and I can both relate, with how hard of a sport golf is.
Yeah.
It seems like, man, I'm driving the ball really well, or I'm hitting my irons really well, but my putting or my short game is shitty, or one asset or facet of the game is off. So, he has a good chance. He just has to be firing at the right time, and I think he could do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, said it before, we love Tiger. We're red on Sundays, so it'd be super great to see. Yeah. Absolutely. So we'll move in here. I'll ask you, Dev, player who do you think can make a sneaky run at the Masters?
So, we don't talk about this guy a lot. I really like what I see out of him, but it's Victor Hovland, and he's a young kid. Last year he was a 2019 low amateur.
Yeah,
he was teammates with Matt Wolff at college.
Oh, wow.
He, again, is another guy who can just make a run. He won the 2019 U.S. Amateur at Pebble Beach, demolished that field. He's got great touch, but he's so powerful, and he's got a kind of an unorthodox move, but just, again, an all-around player. He's a young gun. He's ready to make that run in a major, and I think, we always talk about Morikawa and Matt Wolff and, those young guys, but this is a kid that he's got a great attitude, great perspective, and I really like to see what he's going to do at Augusta here in a couple weeks because I think he's ready to go.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said, I don't even know who the hell that man is. So what's his name again, Dev?
It's Victor Hovland.
Victor Hovland, folks. Keep your eyes out on that man. Dev says so. So before we run out of time here, we're going to move on into our interview with Tyler. Like I mentioned earlier, Tyler's a great guy, great sports knowledge, being a collegiate athlete himself, doing both track and football for Dickinson State. Let's bring Tyler in on here. All right, folks, we're here with Tyler Burk. Tyler's a great friend of Dev and I's. We grew up with the guy, great sports knowledge. Tyler, how you doing today?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Pretty good, thank you. All right, Dev, how's it going for you, man?
Oh, it's going, I'm just glad to have Tyler on. I'm looking forward to this podcast, and glad to have him on this week.
Absolutely, yeah, it's going to be a great one.
All right, so I'm going to get it kicked off here. So for everyone out there, Tyler's a Packers fan just like me. So we're going to be kind of covering the Packers, also, some AFC, NFC predictions for the Super Bowl and who comes out on top there, and then obviously some NBA as well there. He's a Golden State Warriors guy. So I'll kick it off here. So Ty, obviously with you being a Packers fan just like myself, in your personal opinion, what about this team excites you the most, and why do you think people should actually fear them as a true contender coming out of the NFC?
Well, I just want to start off by thanking you both for having me on. I appreciate you taking your time and reaching out to me.
Absolutely.
Like I said, Green Bay is one of those teams where, in my opinion, they only go as far as Aaron Rodgers goes. If you'd asked me this question probably a week ago, I probably would have told you, we don't go anywhere without Aaron Jones. But, last week watching them against the Texans, granted the Texans' defense is nothing to be too afraid of. I thought they played really well without him. Aaron Rodgers is just one of those guys you can't replace, though. I mean, he's phenomenal for what he does for that team. He just, like I said, you just can't replace him. He's third in touchdowns right now in the entire league. So, I mean, what he's doing on the field is just, it's unreal in my opinion. And honestly, I just don't think the Packers would be the same without him. Zadarius Smith on the defensive side of the ball, he does a lot off the ball. Doesn't necessarily make the play every time, but he does a lot and draws a lot of attention to himself, so that helps our defense out a lot too.
Yeah, absolutely. And for those of you that don't know, Tyler plays college football for Dickinson State. I said it last week, but they're the only, what are they, you guys 7-0 now?
Yeah, yes sir.
Only 7-0. Yep, only 7-0 football team in the nation. So as a guy with great football knowledge like yourself, this is kind of something I'm just going to throw at you. What are the things the Packers are doing right that are keeping them only one loss, winning constantly, it seems like, that you see at least?
In my opinion, for starters, they've got the ground game going. Like I said, Aaron Jones was out last week, but I thought they did a great job of getting the ball to Jamal Williams and A.J. Dillon, two guys that I think can really help our offense going. And then, honestly, the one thing that I've been impressed with is they've been taking care of the football. They don't turn the ball over a lot. They don't beat themselves, which has been a bad habit of ours in the past. That one loss that you saw to Tampa Bay, I think you saw them turn it over two or three times. I know where Rodgers had that pick six. So when you don't turn the ball over and you don't make mistakes, it gives your defense a lot better chance of having success, and it just doesn't put your team into a bad spot. So I think that's what the big thing is. They've been taking care of the ball and keeping their defense off the field, which is big.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it seems like just the simplest thing, but turnovers will absolutely make or break you. I mean, we say it day in and day out, but the teams that win and the teams that lose are the ones that commit turnovers and the ones that don't commit turnovers. So,
for sure.
Yeah, so obviously Aaron Rodgers being a big one for the Packers. But who's another key piece? You kind of touched on Zadarius Smith there, but who's another key piece for the Packers for you that is really crucial to them, and why is that?
Well, one thing that kind of, not necessarily a player, but I guess a coach and a relationship, we talk about how successful that offense is and that relationship that Matt LaFleur and Aaron Rodgers have, it's big for them. It's something that I think Packers fans haven't seen, since the McCarthy days when Aaron Rodgers was leading them to the Super Bowl. And so that relationship that they have has been good for us. It's a big key to why the Packers are successful, in my opinion. Up front, staying healthy has been a little bit of an issue for us, but in my opinion, that's been another one of our strengths, is up front, that offensive line can be tough. Aaron Rodgers does a good job of getting the ball out. We saw him use a bunch of different receivers, and Big Bob Tonyan has really come into his own in the last couple weeks, so he's going to be a big piece for us going down the stretch if we want to make a run.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Love that guy.
I'd throw it in there too, obviously, Tyler's made a bunch of great points, and obviously as Packer fans, we went through a lot of years of Aaron Rodgers putting up MVP numbers, but obviously a defense that was lackluster at best and really, really lagging behind. I'd say, obviously, Zadarius Smith is very crucial to us, but I'd say another guy that, in my opinion, holds that defense together is Jair Alexander. I think Jair is one of the most, he doesn't get talked about a lot, but I think he's just one of the best over-the-top defenders that we have. Really good on the ball, really good at jamming the receivers right off the line of scrimmage. Just a really big disruptor, and I think if we can stay healthy in that sense, him and Amos work really well together, especially on those deep balls over the middle. And I think, we're not getting burned over the top, and I think that's a huge thing, is we're not giving up those big plays, and the big plays you can point to that we've given up have arguably been the pick six to Tampa Bay, and then the next drive, Aaron throwing another, essentially a pick six that was within our own 5. So, just like Tyler said, not shooting ourselves or killing ourselves essentially out of the game has been crucial, and putting together drives right off the bat, scoring right off the bat, that's a huge game. But, Aaron Rodgers being comfortable with Matt LaFleur has definitely, given us a huge advantage. So I'll switch it up from Green Bay a little bit here, Tyler. Obviously we love what we see out of the Packers, but to you right now, who is another team that you think we should be on the lookout, or essentially a favorite team for you to watch, and why is that?
Oh, man, did you guys catch that Sunday night game between the Seahawks and the Cardinals? Man, that was fun to watch, wasn't it?
That was a fucking great game. That was awesome.
Absolutely. You can't say anything negative about what you saw between Kyler and Russ and what they did against each other.
Oh, no, it was just absolutely phenomenal. I'm a big fan of good football games, Just think the Steelers and what they're doing defensively is just phenomenal. Only undefeated team left, and that's a big reason is because their defense has been so tough. The Titans, actually, I haven't been much of a fan in the past of just the Titans. I think they get kind of boring to watch, in my opinion. But you got to respect Derrick Henry and just watching that man run through people. It's phenomenal to watch.
Yeah, honestly.
Big Russell Wilson guy. You know, I'm a Badgers fan through and through, so love seeing my guy out of Wisconsin there play well at quarterback. And like I said, just that Sunday night game was just, I mean, that was a phenomenal game, I thought. It was great to see both those offenses play as well as they did.
Yeah, man, absolutely. I mean, with Derrick Henry, it kind of reminds me of that quote with the interview with Marshawn Lynch, where he says, you know, guys are going to come at you when you run through their face over and over and over and over and over. Then he pauses and goes, and over and over and over and over. I mean, that's honestly what Derrick Henry is doing. I mean, he is just constantly running through dudes. Like, who did he toss? Josh Norman? I mean, that was insane. He's a grown-ass man.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. I think the league's in a great spot. I think, like Tyler mentioned, that Pittsburgh defense with T.J. Watt, Bud Dupree, Minka Fitzpatrick, great team to watch there. I like good defenses. I mean, I love Russell Wilson. Like you said, I'm not a Seahawks guy, but I love Russell Wilson. Respect the hell out of what the man's done and how he can take essentially nothing around him and make something out of it. And you know, the Cardinals obviously very, very good, underrated team. I just think the league's in a great spot. I think there's teams that kind of caught people by surprise this year. And, you know, I guess side note for both of you, I think, do you think what makes the Rams that team that year in and year out, you know, they kind of seem to get it done, and especially in those big games, you know, against the Bears, kind of a statement there. Do you think they're the only team that people just can't identify and figure out who the hell they are, and that's what makes them so good?
Yeah, I mean, I'll let Tyler tackle this after me, but I honestly, I don't think they really know who they are, to be honest. The Rams, like, I seem like every year, like, the year they went to the Super Bowl, they were a run-heavy team, obviously with Todd Gurley and then C.J. Anderson coming in clutch in the end. And then the year after that, they were a pass-heavy team. And then this year, they're still struggling to figure out what the heck they are. So I think they're one of those teams that they can win in a lot of different categories. Obviously, defensively, they're super great with Aaron Donald and guys like that. But, I mean, I think they don't really have themselves set in a certain way offensively, like how we talked about Tennessee being a run-heavy team. But it's good for them because, I mean, they can beat you in any category they need to if you take away one aspect of the game.
Yeah, no, I couldn't have said it any better myself, Brooksy. One thing that I've kind of noticed, you know, with the Rams, and I've gotten to watch them a couple times, actually, but I noticed that Monday night game, you notice most of their plays they got down the field were off of play-action passes. You know, they got the run game going early, and they really kind of got after it. They didn't sit back and let the Bears defense necessarily come after them, but they went after the Bears defense. They weren't afraid of Khalil Mack on the edges. They got those stretch plays going early, and I think it really helps Jared Goff when they can get a running game going. I mean, Jared Goff is one of those quarterbacks that I think with Sean McVay calling plays, he's going to take you places if you allow him to do that. If you set him up for success off those play-action passes and stuff, I think he's a great quarterback. Like I said, it's easy for him when he gets a run game going, and that offense can be very scary if they get a run game going. You know, it sets up a lot of their stuff coming off of it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good point. I never really thought about that, but definitely like a lot of their big plays came off play action. I mean, it's kind of the same with, like, we always talk about the Browns, and I feel like people are probably going to be tired of us here and talk about the Browns. They're such an interesting team, too. Like, the play-action game, like, last week was the only week, really, where their play-action game wasn't really going for them. Like, the Rams, Jared Goff, play-action is a huge part of their offense.
And they've also got, you know, we don't talk about a lot, they've also got one of the most dependable and pretty solid receiving cores, you know, with Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods and also some other weapons there. I think they're just comfortable, and I think, like Brooke said, you know, I don't think they truly know who they are, but I think that's what's also exciting for them is we can beat you on the defensive side of the ball if our offense is struggling. We can also be an offense that pops off and throws 42 points right in your face. So I think they're a team, you know, at 5-2 sitting in the NFC West that, I think we can't really put a pin on who they are, but I think that's what is also exciting too is, you know, we can see them win in different ways, and that's what football's all about, you know, winning at all costs. And I think they're a great team in it that exemplifies that.
Absolutely. They're playing some Blue Hawk football over there, aren't they, Tyler?
No, for sure they are.
Okay, so we'll ask you this one too. At this, obviously, you mentioned Russell Wilson. You really like the guy, but at this moment, who is your MVP and why?
For sure they are. Okay, so we'll ask you this one too. At this, obviously, you mentioned Russell Wilson. You really like the guy, but at this moment, who is your MVP and why?
Who is your MVP and why?
MVP
Just going back to Russell Wilson, I thought that Sunday night game was just a great showing for him. He's been flying under the radar for the last however many years.
Honestly.
Doesn't really get the respect he deserves, in my opinion. He's a top 3 quarterback in the league right now. Just looking at what he's doing with what he's got, I know he's got DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, who both played pretty well in that Sunday night game, but I couldn't tell you the last time the guy's had a 1,000-yard rusher on his team.
Honestly.
He's constantly dealing without a running back, without that consistency. His offensive line play is hit or miss. So in my opinion, right now, Russell Wilson is the MVP. However, I don't know. You can never count out Patrick Mahomes with that offense. They're phenomenal. In the end, I think by the week 17, I think if Russell Wilson continues to play as well as he is, then I think he's going to get that MVP. But like I said, with Patrick Mahomes, you never know.
Yeah.
There's no reason why that offense couldn't put up insane numbers as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I thought it was kind of cool and funny too. But DeAndre Hopkins has been trying to get Kyler Murray's name out there in the MVP conversation. And if you look at it, his numbers are right up there, top 5 in the league. So I mean, he's kind of one of those guys too that's kind of flying under the radar. Obviously, Russell Wilson, I agree with you 100%. I think he's my guy, to be honest. But I think Kyler Murray could kind of sneak in there and make it close if things come down to the wire.
I think the thing about Russell that again, like we talked about not getting respect, I mean, the man's never received an MVP vote, not one. And when you look at his resume, you're like, how the hell has this guy flown under the radar, no MVPs? And I think the league, again, it's tough. It's tough to say who's the MVP. But, yeah, like Tyler said, I mean, you just watched that Sunday Night Football game, and Tyler Lockett obviously has a great connection with Russell and DK as well. But I mean, he's just the ability to extend plays and get outside the pocket, and then once he gets outside the pocket, I mean, you can almost guarantee he's going to get you positive yards, whether it's with his legs, getting a receiver on the sideline. He's just another guy that I just think he's such a hassle for defensive coordinators to prepare for because I think Mike Pettin mentioned it about Deshaun Watson. I think it's very much so to Russell Wilson and maybe even more. Mike's like, I prepare plays and around, him staying in the pocket, but as soon as he steps outside the pocket, it's now play number 2, and that has to be reactionary by the defensive players, and they have to make something happen. So a guy like Russell with his experience and his vision down the field and his super accurate arm, I mean, you just can't deny what he's doing, and he's definitely the most valuable player just because if you took him off Seattle, there's no way in hell they're doing what they're doing without him.
Not a bit.
No, Brooksy, you said, you mentioned Kyler Murray, and that's a great point. I do think, I mean, you're hearing it here first on Inbound Sports. Mark my words. Kyler Murray is going to be the MVP next year. I'm calling it. They're a piece away. I think they're going to be a playoff team this year, but I think he's a running back away from having just a crazy year. So mark my words, you're hearing it first here on Inbound Sports. He's my MVP pick for next year.
I love that. Tyler's getting us out there with some very bold predictions. So, if you got a problem with it, you know who to mess with.
Balls, Burke. Way to bring it out. I like the pick. That's definitely something that I can see happening. So we'll keep moving along here. So right now, obviously, a lot can change, but at this moment right now, Tyler, who do you have as your NFC and AFC champions come the end of January, and why is that?
When I was first looking through these questions and I saw that one, I really got to thinking, in the AFC, it's tough to count out the Steelers, like I said, the last of the undefeateds. However, they do have some issues, I think, on the offensive side of the ball. Mm-hmm. You saw in that Titans game, they gave up, 17 unanswered points, and to me, a lot of that was on the offensive side of the ball. Their defense spent the entire second half pretty much out on the field trying to tackle Derrick Henry, and as we all know, that isn't as easy as it sounds. But in the AFC, I got to go with the Kansas City Chiefs. The reigning Super Bowl champs. Until somebody really comes out and shows that they can take away everything that Kansas City is doing on offense and completely dominate Kansas City, barring injury, obviously. I think they're the team to beat out of the AFC. And the NFC is it's just so close. There's so many teams right now that I think are legit contenders, but if I had to go a top 3 right now, I'd say the Green Bay Packers would probably be there.
Go figure.
Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Bucks, I got to put up there as much as I don't want to. And then Seattle with just having Russell Wilson and that offense and doing what they're doing. I think Seattle's going to get Jamal Adams back here soon, and that's going to help that defense out.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you guys saw today that they traded for Carlos Dunlap on the defensive line. And I think that was a big move for them, finally get a guy that can put some pressure on quarterbacks. So going down the stretch, hopefully he can make an impact for them too. But those are my 3 out of the NFC.
Yeah, man, absolutely. I like that. And like that Carlos Dunlap one, that's a big one. I mean, Cincinnati's having a really tough year, and he's had a tough year, to be honest. But the man, when he's been at Cincinnati, if you look back at his numbers, he's been nothing but production. So I think that's a huge pickup for Seattle, and I think that could definitely help solidify their spot at number 1 in the NFC.
Yeah, I mean, like Tyler said, playoff runs are always fueled by a great quarterback, and there's no denying that Patrick Mahomes has put up some crazy playoff games already. The comeback against the Texans. If it's going through Arrowhead, and especially we don't really know what's going to go on with COVID, and if they can get more capacity, I mean, Arrowhead in January is going to be the hardest place you could imagine to play. And I mean, obviously with us being Packer fans, we love what we're seeing out of the squad, and Aaron Rodgers continues to keep going with that team. And there's no denying that Tom Brady has put up some MVP-esque numbers lately, especially the last 5 weeks. That team has been dominant, putting up points like crazy. The defense is arguably, top 3 easily. And, Seattle, Russell Wilson, again, he's a clutch player. He'll get it done any way he has to, on the road, at home. He's not afraid of anything, and I think his leadership, it reflects in the other players as well. So I can't really deny you on any of your points there. I mean, those are just 4 teams that, you look at them and you say, yeah, they're ready to get the Lombardi Trophy, and there's no denying that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll switch gears here. We'll move over into basketball. As Devin mentioned earlier, Tyler's a Golden State Warriors fan. As much as I'd like to talk trash on him, he's been a fan since day one of them, since I've known him. But that doesn't matter. I still hate them, and I still hate you, Tyler. So good job on that one. But obviously, injuries really plagued the Warriors last year. Having Clay and Steph being hurt, Draymond, off and on. A lot of inexperience out there on the court. But if they have Clay and Steph healthy, which they most likely are, what do you see as a prediction for your Golden State Warriors, and what is so scary about that squad when they're all healthy?
Yeah, looking back at the last season with Steph and Clay, being injured and not having Kevin Durant, obviously, it really kind of forced Draymond, I think, to take on that role of having to be a bucket getter. We didn't really have anybody that we could rely on like in years past. I think it was actually a blessing in disguise going forward. I think it really helped him offensively. I know statistically he struggled. He shot, I think, 3 or 4% lower from deep than what he usually does. And I know around the rim he struggled. But, no, going forward, it's exciting as a Golden State fan. We got the number 2 pick this year. So I'm interested to see what they do with that. Bob Myers is a great GM out there.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be interested to see if he thinks that we can if there's somebody that's worth drafting and developing, or if he's still in that win now mentality and he goes out and uses it as trade bait to go get another star.
Oh, yeah.
Another guy that we don't really talk about, that's kind of been under the radar is Andrew Wiggins. I mean, he's one of those guys that he's been a career for over his career. I think he's averaging 21 or 22 points a game. He's been on some bad teams with the Timberwolves there for a while, but he's a guy that can play that 3 spot, which really helps us because we can keep Clay in the 2-guard spot. So I think getting everybody healthy again and seeing what they do with that that number 2 overall pick is definitely going to be interesting. It's definitely going to be good to get those guys back, obviously. They're an entirely different team when we have them back. But, no, it's exciting times going forward for the Golden State fan base. Like I said, it's a long time. We haven't had much to be excited about since, the last championship. So
Which was last year, or 2 years ago.
Going forward.
Yeah, gee, it must be nice. As a Thunder fan, I'm still heartbroken that we lost against the Heat when So must be nice to have to be missing it only for a couple years. But yeah, no,
I feel sorry for you, buddy.
hey, it is what it is. I chose this path, I suppose. But I do like that point you brought up about that. I believe you said it's the number 2 pick they have. I think that's super interesting because, I mean, we look at the Warriors. I mean, outside the 3-point line, they've got it all figured out. There's a lot of talk about that. I think his name's Wiseman, the big freshman out of Memphis. I think that'd be kind of an interesting fit there for him. I mean, they've had solid big guys that play randomly good, like, is it Festus Ezeli they had? And then Zaza Pachulia, who literally looks like Oscar the Grouch and plays like Oscar the Grouch. I mean, it would be nice for them to see like a nice young big man in the middle of that team that can get rebounds for him. Honestly, just develop his game because, I mean, literally all he'd be doing is getting rebounds, setting screens, learning from some of the greatest players in the game. So I think that'd be a really cool thing. And then a lot of things people are forgetting, too, is how aggressive the Warriors are at trading. Like you said, with that number 2 pick, they could definitely make a move and grab some other All-Star because that GM of theirs, he's super aggressive at the trade deadline, and he loves getting players brought in.
Right. Yeah, they're a scary team. I mean, again, I think we all talked about how, everyone seems to think, oh, the Warriors ruined basketball. I said, no, the Warriors, what Clay and Steph did is they changed the game. They said, hey, that 3-point line means nothing. You got to start guarding me at half court. We have the depth and the range to shoot from anywhere. And I think, obviously guys like, Damian Lillard, who can pull up from just as deep, is crazy. But yeah, I mean, that once they cross the half court, you got to be right on them, or else, they're really, really good. Steve Kerr is a genius when it comes to the pick and roll. I thought he used that so well. I think, again, it allows Draymond to be efficient. And again, I think, Clay is that number 2 guy that's just so scary because, he had 37 points in a quarter. And we've seen that, Clay and Steph can kind of take the load by themselves. So it's a team that, again, they're not being talked about, but I have big expectations out of them coming up. So, so we'll kind of shift from that going to this one, Ty. So besides, obviously, in quotes, the big 3, you got Steph, Clay, and Draymond. Obviously, just a great core to have. But in your eyes, what player has to step up and be a vital 4th man for that lineup in order to see a championship run again?
Well, like I mentioned earlier, with the number 2 pick, I'm not going to hit too hard on that. I'll be interested to see what they do. But just going forward, I think if they do decide to keep that pick, and we do, barring we keep everybody like an Andrew Wiggins, I think it's going to be one of those years where we need him to step up. We're not going to be asking him to put up 30 points a night, I don't think, but I think as far as shooting the ball from deep, last year he only shot 32% from the 3-point line, so I'd like to see him improve his numbers a little bit more. Another guy that's never really talked about that can stretch the floor, and it's kind of a 2-level scorer. He likes to shoot it, and he's got a decent mid-range game, is Jordan Poole. I think with Steph and Clay being hurt this last year, he got a lot of valuable minutes that he might not have otherwise gotten, but it really kind of forced his hand and really forced him to develop into a scorer. So I think it would be good for him to come off the bench again, kind of where he belongs as that role player, and just put up some buckets off the bench for us.
Yeah, absolutely. You touched on it there because I was going to bring him up as Jordan Poole. I really like his mentality. He's definitely like not afraid to shoot the ball. And on a team like this, you really can't be. I mean, who knows how often you're going to touch the ball. And I think he's an aggressive defender. I think he's got a lot of room to learn and grow there. So I think he could be a real breakout player for him. We could see him have a 30 to 40 point night easily if Steph is out or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I'll touch on the other guy Tyler mentioned that I loved was, Andrew Wiggins. Obviously, he was in a couple of years in Minnesota that weren't great, but big guy, can defend, great large wingspan, can shoot the ball, can extend the floor. I think, like Tyler said, if he can develop, especially down low and get it done down there. And, obviously we don't know what they're going to do with the second pick. If they're going to draft somebody, develop, or if they're going to trade it away for another star. But I really like the future of this squad. I think they're young, ready to go, and they got great leadership.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure.
Yeah, so we'll jump into our last question here for you, Tyler. Kind of getting NBA season as a whole. Who's your team to watch out for next year?
obviously, LeBron James, the best basketball player in the world right now. You're going to have to watch out for the Lakers, barring that team stays together. I know they got a couple key pieces like Dwight Howard. I think that's contract is up. And so they got a couple big guys that they might lose this free agency. But obviously the Lakers are going to be tough. Dev, your Clippers, if they ever figure that one out, they might be a tough team out of the West too. Out of the East, I really like the Celtics. I thought that, they just kind of ran into a Jimmy Butler determined team. That Miami team played extremely well. I think they're a piece away from potentially, taking that team back to the finals out of the East. And then one team, that I don't think gets talked about a lot is that 76ers team. I know they have their issues with Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. They don't really have an identity. They don't really know what they want to be. But I know Doc Rivers he's one of those guys that he's just got so much knowledge for the game that I think it kind of reminds me, this team that he has in the 76ers kind of reminds me of the old school Celtics in a way, with the Paul Pierce and the Ray Allen. Obviously, they don't have as many shooters as the Celtics did. Mm-hmm. But I think that he could definitely turn it around. And then obviously, it's always interesting to see teams like the Blazers, that small market team with Damian Lillard and CJ. Those are always interesting teams. And then actually, I'm a big Mavs and Jazz guy. Both of those teams have some young stars that I think are changing the game and changing how the game is played. And both of those teams could be contenders out of the West. So it's going to be an interesting year, that's for sure. Yeah. I think COVID obviously kind of put a damper on the league a little bit. We didn't get to see as many good games as I think we could have. I think the NBA did a great job of getting that bubble set up so we could at least get some basketball back. But those are kind of my teams to look out for in the NBA next year.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have to agree with you. I agree with absolutely every single one of those. But I think the team we need to really start putting some respect on their name is the Toronto Raptors. I mean, I don't know how many times they got to be in the playoffs competitive for us to look at them and be like, this is a team that deserves to win a championship, or at least be in the conversation to win a championship every year. I really like how Kyle Lowry plays basketball. Nick Nurse is a great head coach. So, I mean, yeah, the Toronto Raptors are another team for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're all great points that Tyler made. I got to say another team I like is the Denver Nuggets. I think they have one of the best big men, if not the best big man in basketball, Nikola Jokic, shout out to Serbia. I mean, his court vision is unparalleled to any big man we've ever seen. Jamal Murray, he's such a great young point guard, and I think he's learning a lot from Jokic, and I think they're feeding off of each other. And obviously Michael Porter Jr. in there, I mean, he's shown some great development off of that injury that we weren't really knowing. So I think the NBA is just, I love the future of it. I think there's going to be a lot of great basketball out of both the West and the East, and I think moving forward, I think there's a lot of teams we can look at and say, they're, like Tyler said, they're one piece away. They just need that one guy to find, and it doesn't need to be a superstar. It's just whoever fits right, and I think that's why the Heat were so special this year is they didn't have the guys that you normally would say, I want him on my team, but Jimmy Butler, like Tyler said, he was driven, motivated, and obviously, guys like Duncan Robinson and Tyler Hero and Bam Adebayo, they fed off that and just clicked at the right time. So I think, the NBA is in such a special spot.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so that will about wrap us up here. Tyler, thank you so much again for coming on, man. I can't tell you how much Dev and I appreciate your time and effort you put into gathering information, and obviously just taking the time out of your busy schedule, being a collegiate athlete, for coming on. So thank you so much for that, man.
Yeah, anytime. I appreciate you guys reaching out and getting a hold of me and having me on. You guys are doing some great things, and I'm looking forward to the podcast growing.
Absolutely, man. Thank you so much for that. So that is the face of Dickinson State football, if I do say so myself. TMFB, Tyler Burk. Thank you. All right, that was Tyler Burk, everyone. Fantastic interview. We absolutely love talking to Tyler. So much fun. He's so knowledgeable. It was just a great interview. It was great. So thank you again, Tyler. We'll jump into our last segments here to wrap up the show. Brooks' Best Bets. As I mentioned before, it's a segment we like to do at the end. Dev and I like sports betting. It's a little thing we like to throw in at the end. So I'll give you guys my bets for the week. I got Browns at home at -4.5 against the Raiders. I really like that one. And then Lions, I'm going to take the Lions with the spread at 2.5. They're underdogs there against Indianapolis. And I really think the Lions can sneak a nice win in there.
Yeah, no, great bets there. So I'll move into my dogs of the week. Look, as much as uncertainty as they provided, I like the Bears at +4 at home against New Orleans. Brooks brought it up earlier. New Orleans is streaky. I think that defense at home, it's getting cold. I think they merely make a stand. I think the offense kind of picks up the pieces a little bit against a Saints defense that I definitely think is not worthy of being called a top 10, top 15 defense. So that's my first one. Second one, Steelers on the road against the Ravens at +4. I think this is going to be a hell of a game. Again, we've seen some great Pittsburgh-Baltimore games, getting it late into the year. Obviously back to, we all know the hit Ryan Clark on Willis McGahee. So I think this is going to be a great matchup, and we'll see, if the Ravens are up for the challenge or if the Steelers keep rolling, obviously on the defensive side. And then, Brooks, I'm going to give you a little shout out here, brother. I'm taking the Broncos at +3.5 against the Chargers at home. Look, I really like this Broncos team, and to everyone listening, I understand the record doesn't show it, but I like Drew Lock's leadership, Jerry Jeudy and Tim Patrick on the offensive side. I think Melvin Gordon and Phillip Lindsay got going nicely against the Chiefs last week. Defense shows that they can get sacks, they can get to the quarterback. So I think, it's going to be cold. I think that, as great as Herbert and that offense is looking coming in, I think I'm looking to see a little bit of grit out of the Broncos squad. I think they get the win this week.
Yeah, love that. Yeah, go Broncos. Why not? They may have lost the Chiefs, but, a lot of season left. So that'll about wrap it up for us here, folks. Thank you so much, Tyler, again. Great interview. We loved having you on, man. Thank you to everybody, first and foremost, that's been watching. We said in the beginning, it means the world to us. It really does. We're just a couple college kids just talking about sports. That's what we love to do. And the fact that it can, maybe even bring some joy or enjoyment in other people's lives just means the world to us. We just enjoy the fact that people actually do listen to it. I mean, at the end of the day, that's really all it's about. We're having fun. We're cousins. We're best friends, like I always say. So, yeah, thank you to everybody who tuned in. We greatly appreciate it. Next week, we're looking at no podcasts. We got school. We're just going to catch up with family. So we're going to take a little bit of break there. And then we'll follow up with our 5th podcast a week after that. And then, we're going to look at try to get some little fun group discussion stuff going on. So, yeah, be looking out for that. We'll definitely have announcements on our Instagram page, Facebook page. But, yeah, thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Dev, any last words?
No, I think you covered it all. Again, thank you to everybody for your kind words. Again, just going on to the YouTube channel, listening, subscribing, liking, commenting. It's been a joy. This has been beyond what Brooks and I expected. It's been a lot of hard work, but it's been well worth it. So much love to all of our followers, subscribers, everybody who's tuned in. Tyler, thank you again, brother. It was a great podcast, great interview. Best of luck to him in the conference championship against Valley State this weekend. And, just looking forward to a great future, and hope everyone stays safe, stays healthy, and God bless.
Absolutely. Go Blue Hawks. All right, folks. Well, that'll do it for us, and we will see you soon. Thank you so much. Go Killer.